you can read the storyline instead of this story, they know. You want to try and do changes in it. They will say, no, I want that way. But as director, I be a Ghanaian. I want a way that compatible Ghana culture and Ghana settings that will sell the product, because elsewhere in Europe and Americas, although they see most of those things there. They want to see the real culture of Ghana, our identity. That's what they want to see. I don't think my dear sister they want to see a big thing like this and that in the movies. No. They want to see a woman, a young girl, grinding even tomatoes on a stone. They want to think, how come? Is he going to eat it? Then he can reflect on it. How can we use blender to blend tomatoes and pepper? But these people, they use stone to grind tomatoes. These are the real stories. We experience that happens in Ghana. So I think we have a lot to talk about this matter. But as time goes on, we have opportunity and call for more to come. So at least we get more interest about these things to sell our country.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So, like you said, so media, that's an interesting thing because of what gets portrayed. We have a lot of stories that, for some reason, not even us, we are telling those stories or we're shooting those stories. So, a few examples. Yasuke, I don't know if you know who that is, but that's the first Black African samurai in Japan who was a slave. There's a story in that. Mansa Musa, everybody knows who that is, but still, no one who looks like us that shot a movie series to tell about this richest man in the world at one point. Yasato, fierce woman, great story, still no movie on it. We have the stories, but it's not being done. So I ask you that question. I'm sure the names that I mentioned, you might not know some of them. Some of them you do know of because it's being glorified as the richest man ever to live. To help the end of Japan, become samurai, knowing Japan's history. So as media students and journalists, I am employed. Dig into the story, you might find something interesting that's never been shot, it's never been told, but that has amazing backgrounds that can not only tell one story, but flip into 2, flip into 3, flip into series, Netflix. Netflix actually did a series on Yasuke, but it was an animation. And
also did a job from Wu-Tang. He's like infatuated with that guy.
Yes, he
He
is.
actually did some sort of like B-roll film
Yes,
for
he
the
is.
story as well. So they actually have done something.
They have.
Yeah.
In the sense of like a big production.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what we're like we hope for. But just think about it. Like why it hasn't been done? Is it being stopped? We have the stories. They should be told. Not by anyone else, by us. I remember being young and Dragon Ball Z was one of my favorite things. And it was shot. Worst movie ever. And that's a Japanese animation. They should have told the story. But someone else did. Hollywood told the story. And the movie was bad. So I don't want to wait anymore in terms of having someone else come tell the story for us, and then when it messes up, then we complain about it. It's not us. Black Panther, it's not our story. Don't get me wrong, I love the movie, but it's not our story. We didn't write it. Black man did not write that story, so if somebody shoots it and tells the story in the way that they want to, we can't get mad. And I found it very interesting, like how people dressed up and made some awesome. That was ridiculous to me. I'm sorry. Right? Sure.
We were actually talking about we started on the topic of books, of books that tell stories about, our people and our ancestors, but they don't come from necessarily our people who are writing the books. And then we transfer it over into movies, how that's demonstrated. And I find that, like, I agree with your statement in that, like, it's frustrating that, we complain about things not being written by us, but we allow others to, capitalize on that. But then on the other end, I'm thinking, like, perhaps they never asked us to have our stories. Perhaps we weren't hoping with that. And it's not necessarily that we're just giving them access to our stories, rather they're stealing our stories and capitalizing off of it. And so, in part, I'm like, the complaints are valid because it's like, it's not, like, they didn't ask us whether or not they could have the content that they're capitalizing off of. And so I guess I'm wondering if you've taken under consideration, like, maybe it isn't that, we're just upset because other people are, like, maybe it's been robbed as opposed to just us giving it. And I only say that because I've had conversations with my father. He's like a music fanatic, and that's how I was introduced to Afrobeats, he's Nigerian. And we've had many conversations about this, and he's like, we like to complain about how, for instance, white people use our stories and they take it, but they're the ones with the money and all that, those certain things. And so for me, I'm like, I get both sides, but I also am just like, it's because historically white people have had more access than we have ever had. And I say that I come from a PWI, and I do this every day. I'm the only black girl in my classes, and there's a level of access that I'm not allowed to have because I'm black and I'm a woman. So it's like, it's not even about me just giving people access to the content of my life, but rather it's being stolen every time I walk into a room without someone asking me. And so I'm wondering if that has also come to question mine in terms of, like, music or content or
I think it has. Well, the argument that I have for that is the perfect example is Bollywood. I mean, what can we say about that? Bollywood is the second largest industry. They have stories. They were colonized. Their stories are stolen all the time as well, but they still develop somehow, some way. So then, what's stopping us? I don't want to blame no one else for taking our stories. If it is, yes, it is stolen. Fine. But there's a bunch of people on this continent that have money. India, they have money, but it's the willingness to jump on it and say that we are going to change and turn this around. And it sounds funny when they say that, oh, come back home. Everything that you've learned, bring it here. Let's develop this place to make it our own. And I grew up in Virginia. I went to elementary in Virginia, went to middle school in Maryland. I remember vividly, people in school laughing at the fact that I'm from Ghana. They just say we have no history, we have this. And then one guy particularly told me that the reason why African Americans don't get along with Africans is because we never came back for them. So for me, that's a story. That's an interesting conversation that they feel that way. In return, some Africans on the continent feel that how would we actually do that? What resources do we have? We have the resources, we just didn't know how to turn that into the wealth that other countries have, or the people who come to take that from here and turn that into wealth. So there's an interesting conversation about that. So that's a big piece for me. That's something I think about all the time. And I feel like when you're working on your stories and planning to shoot stuff and whatnot, just ask questions like that around what's happening on the continent now. Like even DRC Congo, it's always portrayed as a place that is there's militia all around and whatnot, but there's a bunch of Europeans and a bunch of Asians buying our property like crazy. So it must not be that dangerous.
And even Somalia, you go to Somalia, it's not as bad as Western Philippines, thriving businesses there. But that's besides the point. I just wanted to add to this conversation about why we're not telling these stories. Contrary to what a lot of people think, creating is expensive. and creating on the scale that we're talking about, where you want your story not just to be told for posterity's sake, but to be able to make business out of it and get people all over the globe to accept it, appreciate it, experience it. That's expensive. Now, one of the challenges that we have, and I've seen it working with various creatives this part of the world, and I'll come back to Ghana, we haven't mastered the business of art, the creative entrepreneurship side of things. So you have one artist who goes to record in the studio, and now she's trying to sell her music like, mixtapes on the street like back in the day. And then you put a post or two on social media, and then when people don't respond to it, you're upset because it didn't go viral like someone else's. Now, if you dig deeper, you realize that this person doesn't have a business development manager. This person doesn't have anyone advising them on the business. This person doesn't have any access to legal counsel. So doesn't even know what the legalities of it are. This person doesn't even know anything about marketing and PR strategy and how to even engage the media to get the media to be interested in what they're doing. Now, all of that, there's a level of collaboration, but there's also money involved, which we don't have. One thing that we haven't mentioned that the Nigerians did in 2010, we made a call, much like what we've done with the Year of Return, made a call for the diaspora to come back home and invest. So reached out to diaspora in Hollywood, in Bollywood, in South Africa, in then other parts of the world, Europe, that were doing well, and asked them to come home and do skills transfer, train, develop, just pass on what they've learned to their people. Now, when they did that, corporate Nigeria began to see the business aspect of art, and then they in turn became interested in funding it. So much so that taking away the corporations themselves from the picture, you could have an Anaya who has a huge mansion, and you say, I don't have a problem, come and shoot the movie in my house. Don't build a set, use that money for something else. You can work with my match, I don't live in it anyway. We haven't seen that happen in Ghana at all. People don't even want to collaborate. And there's something that I always say, when I say, Ghanaians get upset with me. We have a culture here where we shame wealth. That is the truth. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this. I always say that I've told you what my background has been like. I haven't had the hustle as many artists have. And I can't apologize for that, right? However, I'm very aware of my privilege. And I'll tell you that there are a lot of Ghanaians who have the money to invest, but they won't because they feel that once people see, they'll start questioning where I got my money from, they'll victimize me, they'll tag me to a certain political party, or if I don't identify with any political sides of the divide, then I will be, victimized for that. Those conversations happen, and people are not willing to come out and speak about it openly because that's how we behave. Now that affects things like art and the art business. So a lot of what we're seeing, there's money. And I can say this because I have come to the point where I hold the record of hosting the biggest poetry concert in Ghana. We also by a single artist, an individual artist. Yes. How did we do that? We wrote proposals, but I had that background, right? Wrote proposals, did visibility studies, and we said, look, people actually like poetry. It doesn't always have to be, in an alley bar somewhere, and there are actually people who would pay good money to come out to a concert like we're going to the ball, And we did that. And our very first edition in 2018, we weren't sure if people would buy tickets. So we threw it as an open invitation. We sent out special invitations and whatnot. And Kempinski, which I'm sure you guys know, one of the biggest hotels in Ghana, came on board as a partner and gave us the space, but that's because we allowed them to see the business in it. And moving forward, we've been able to raise funds to pull this thing together, giving platforms to other artists, poets, musicians, and whatnot to take our stage. Last year, we moved to the National Theatre. Again, they came on board as a partner, and we did a lot of the sets on the night with the National Symphony Orchestra, the National Dance Ensemble, and then the National Drama Group. So it's possible, but we need to collaborate, and it's not happening. It's not happening. Somebody has expertise, somebody has knowledge, somebody has space, somebody has other resources. If we don't collaborate, we won't see our ability to tell these stories come to fruition. And that also means all of you here, as you go back home, and do also need to be ambassadors of collaborating across the Atlantic. It took our ancestors away. We need to come back, and we need to do it by collaborating to get our stories to.
When we shooting MZ movies, we wanted to get a location, a particular location. We moved to Okomite, around Astra Road. We got a place, very nice place. Also, we will ask the manager, the one in charge, we want to use your setting to shoot our music video. The man said no. We beg the man, he said no. Why? Because my boss almost sees that you be annoyed with me. You see, the understanding about the whole industry than most people very, very bad. So when you need asset certain things, it's very difficult for you to get it. And as a director, you'll be compromised to use anything to shoot. Meanwhile, it's not how you want it. And because the accessibility is not there, so you tend to just compromise and use anything. So I think, like my answer was saying, as young ladies and gentlemen here today, carry the story out there. We have story here, very rich story that can sell and make you millions, but we've not done it to anything. Thank you.
Sorry, did you have a question for Obi?
Yes, I wanted to ask the same question I asked his experience. Okay, as your experience as a new artist in Nigeria trying to break out, what is that like? Has it been difficult? Are you finding it easy?
What else with you?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Can you?
I was asking, as a new artist, are you finding it easy to break out as a new artist, being backed by a label or a production company? Are you finding things easier now in terms of like getting radio play, getting your name out there, doing shows?
To be honest with you, I'm totally here for anybody.
I think it's I think the first one is your eye and gender, how is it easy for you guys to break into the industry? Are you struggling, or is having a label like music really helping you to propel your career? I think you just keep from there. Hopefully, James, I got the question somewhat right.
Yeah, you do.
Okay. Hello, so let me start off by introducing myself to everyone. My name is Bobby. I am from Nigeria. I am Afrobeat and after highlight the nation. Upcoming dancer. Right? So I do this music stuff, right? I have seen how it's going and I know a few things about it right now. So in Nigeria, breaking into this industry, it's more matter. You understand? It's not an easy thing. You have to struggle, do your best. It's out there, be everywhere. No, it doesn't work like that in Nigeria. They have to do a whole lot of promotion. So and there are too many promotions. Everything now money. It's part of the world. Everything now money. Yeah, you understand? Like you want to promote your song, start from design your art cover, now money. Every promotion. Right? As I've been like this, I wasn't able to do that. I wasn't able to promote most of the things I've done right now in my music career. To be honest with you, I got signed to make music in 2021, and ever since then, my music career have changed totally. Right? Yeah, I'm not particularly big. I'm not particularly where I wanted to be right now, but I mean, I can see how the whole thing is done, and it's making sense. Right? So what I'm trying to say is, if you're working with the best team, if you're working with people who know what, who have the same dream like you, understand, you're going to achieve it. Working with my boss, my Mr. Harris, the boss, EOH Music. I think it made me understand how the music business is. So we are taking it gradually. Because if you go with the whole lot of money, the music industry is going to swallow it. So you have to be up a strategy, right? So we have to be up a strategy. I hope the whole lot of people who need money, who need your money to promote you, they want money, right? So we have to figure out particular promotion strategy to do about it. So that's one of the things I've learned from working with the level. And I think working with the level will help you to do it faster. I mean, it helps you to do it faster. You can even go far because these are two set of people who want to succeed. They want to achieve something. So when they join forces together, you know what I'm saying? They are going to push it. They're going to make it happen. Thank you. So that's how I feel. I don't know.
Thank you for that. Also, I have a question for you.
Thank you, Moby. James out. Get that?
Yeah, I did. I have a question for you, though. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Also?
Oh, question for you.
Yeah, I have a question for him. Yeah. Also, can you hear me? Okay, I guess you can't hear me. Okay, so at this time, I just want to ask, does anyone have a question about industry, poetry? Oh, can you give her the mic, please?
Specific question, because I know in the States, I would say African cinema as a whole is very, I guess censored is maybe the right word. We don't really get as a film student learn more about European and our own cinema. And I guess if we do learn about anything in the continent of cinema, it's Nigeria, Nollywood. And so kind of, is it similar to the music situation where Nigeria kind of is both I don't want to say monopoly, but just as a powerhouse really, and Ghana and other countries don't really have that much access or attention? If that makes sense.
Yes, we have organizations. We have Ghana Film Artists Institution, Ghana Test. We have directors. We have institutions that govern the art industry. When it comes to music side, we have like 3 different institutions that try to manage the artists and whatever they do and all that. And the movie side, before you can bring your movie out, you take your movie to the censor board. Yeah, you have to view, study your content, story by line by line, scene by scene, and make sure that what you are bringing out is it healthy for, especially the young ones. What are going to learn from it? The impact is going to come on you before they come and approve it for you. Yeah, so. But now, because the movie industry now is not really fashion, so you might not see the activeness of these institutions. But I believe they are still in the section.
So is it a thing of censorship or finances?
I must say finances. Yeah, the major organization has to do the finance. Yeah.
I'm curious to know because back in the States, at least for me, I feel like the music industry is super oversaturated, it's insane, and like honestly, I can't tell who's who. Like, mumble rap sounds all the same with everybody, and like certain genres sound all the same, and they're rapping about the same things, they're singing about the same things, and it's like your generation had the better end of the music, I say. But I'm curious to know, even when I listen to Afrobeats, right? I can't always tell who's who. I can't always tell who the producer is. I can't always tell. I can tell like by the voice who the artist is, but I can't always tell. And so I'm wondering, I was hoping that the connection would be better right now, but how an artist might differentiate themselves. I know that MC was doing this season, he was talking about how he wanted to introduce a whole new genre, similar to the other day. I didn't even know that she did. That was pretty cool. But I'm wondering, even as a producer or music consultant, like how do you, from the music consultant like perspective, help your artists differentiate themselves, and as an artist, how do you, as you're breaking into the industry, differentiate yourself from all the other content that's being produced?
Okay, so now at this point it's kind of difficult because so it's difficult now because we don't necessarily have the control of our own music. And I say that by the pulse is being controlled by outside companies. So if you find a Ghanaian artist or a Nigerian artist that kind of sounds like Wizkid right now, the production style is going to be the same because that's what they want, that's what they hear, that's what's selling. So that's why like labels like Empire are coming to Nigeria to find artists that do the same thing. So, like you said, Wizkid sounds like, his music sounds like the guy who did the song, I forgot his name, but he sounds just like that guy, the production sounds the same. Now, you might have one in the millions like Remo, who has the Indian skill in terms of singing music notes. We have no idea where he got that from, but that's what sets him apart. So when you hear his music, you say, okay, it's kind of cutting across. You'll wonder why right now his song is #1 in India, because the scales are of them. That's different. Nobody's ever done that on the continent. So if you're fortunate enough to have something like that, Sarkodie, at the time that he came out, nobody was rapping like him. No one. Sarkodie, he's from Ghana, one of the biggest rappers. And no one rapped like him. He changed it. He made other rappers rap like him. So you have stories like that, but now the major corporations want that sound. So it's going to be very difficult for people to switch. You're going to have one or two who will probably do the same production, but their style is different. Like I'm sure you don't know this. On the continent, French artists are #2 after Nigeria. Their music industry is bubbling. Like I'm talking about people are getting shows like $1 million per night. Yeah, the French artists are doing really well, but the problem with them is they don't promote it.
So when you say French, you're talking about French France, not Francophone Africa.
No, Francophone Africa.
Francophone Africa
are #2. Nigeria is #1, Francophone is #2. They have some of the top, and then Portuguese speaking countries on the continent too are #3. They have their own people, so they're lucky that is where they promote themselves pretty well. But yeah, in terms of standing out now, you have to be completely different. You have to sound different, you have to look different, so you can like stand out from what's happening now. As soon as that happens, everyone else will jump on that. That's why it sounds the same now. Because as soon as Wizkid got that sound off, everybody jumped on that. Burna Boy, you can't do it because it sounds different.
trying to follow as an educator, I'm captivated by what my sister was talking about. As demands and the industry of the arts, we just not quite master the business of the art. And so I just want to give like a quick plug to Emerson College. And you probably know Emerson from the Boston Blues. But what we do well is film, education, and the arts. And that's primarily who our business. If we were interested, not just in any higher ed institution that has credibility in this space of business for the creative enterprise, are you speaking from a perspective of we as artists you need help, or as would we be going to the film school, or who would we be going to the University of Ghana? Who would I talk to if I wanted Emerson to be in the business of capacity building in this space of creating capacity within you all as the artists and the creatives? Because we can put together significant classes. We can bring our faculty. She represents an amazing faculty that we have. You see that she's here. It does not stop with her. But I'm just confused as to where do I begin that conversation if we want to come over and be a part of that skill company that you hold.
This is very much.
So it has to be a combination of all these things. We've been talking a lot about There's also the Creative Arts Agency, which is supposed to now be helping to build capacity for all creatives all around. But it's been difficult even getting the LI officially passed in Parliament because they focused on but yeah, for a start, you want to start perhaps, especially from where you're coming from, and it's the National Film and Television Institute, you could, through the General Secretary or the CEO of the National Film Authority, Julius Asante, who has been all over the world trying to secure great deals for film, doing really well with very little funding for the authority. That would be a great business. That she's very progressive. She studied Julius Asante, yes, and she did business in arts and film. It was at Harvard. So Christopher was another one that we were able to see. But if we needed to get touch base with all these individual groups, the National Theatre of Ghana as well, because contrary to what many people think, it's not just a building, it's actually supposed to be the governing body for performing arts. So that would also be if you were able to speak to the executive director. Her name is Auntie. I've forgotten her last name. We all call her Auntie. It's a Ghanaian name, everybody's Auntie. But the board chair is Nana Africa. So you can also be in touch with them. You can figure out that
It's a good initiative. The platform is there. When you come together, you can have access to all these people that whatever project you want to do, they will give you the opportunity, they will open door to execute whatever you want to do. The platform is there. And once we all connect together, I think we can also start from there to get champion before that you bring together.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say again, thank you for coming talk to us. This has been a great discussion. But I just want to touch on, because we're talking about education as well. the importance of education, especially early education, and how growing up. I mean, again, this is kind of an American perspective, but growing up, we didn't really learn about poetry. I mean, my grandmother was really into poetry, so I went to her, but like in school, I didn't really do it. And then in high school, I went to a British school, and I did the GCSE program and the IB program. And it wasn't until then, because we did the 6-poem comparison in year 11, and it was very interesting because it was the first time that poetry was like actually like a part of our curriculum and not just like a thing that we did on the side. And so that's also when I started to look into the different perspectives of poetry and also poetry from Africa. And it's very poetry is important in our culture, as you were saying, because a lot of our history is oral history. So I want to know your opinion on how to introduce that curriculum early on, because I think as you get older, it gets harder to kind of incorporate that into your degree or into your school plan, because you have to kind of focus on your majors and specific classes. But yeah, so just how do you think we could do that both in Ghana and maybe also in America, because I think education is so important. It's really hard to do an overhaul, but in some cases it is needed. So.
That's a great question. Now, before I segue into that, I entered media because I wanted to be able to promote the arts. I was teaching full time. I was teaching the IB program. Yes, I was. I taught the theory of knowledge. I taught English 101. I had a 1 school with the literature and language. Now, one of the things that pushed me towards media, one of my students in class when they asked me, they get us to write our poems or our feelings, but really, this is going to make us think. What do we do if we decide that we want to be poets or want to be writers? And I really did that. And I decided I was, but it's me being me. I do a lot of creative things. But I'll tell you one thing. I mentioned the creative arts class, and there's, as it stands, a committee that's been put together. Now, one of the things that we've been asked to do as a committee is to come up with a creative education game plan for Ghana. And we're hoping that when we've piloted it, it's a upon Parliament approves it, we can now take it to the rest of the continent and then to other parts of the world that have voices that are disadvantaged. Now, why creative education? Hit the nail right on the head. Beyond the fact that if you're not introduced to it very early, it becomes more difficult to accept it and imbibe it later on in life. There are lots of ways in which we're disadvantaging young people in terms of their learning. There are brilliant educators here. I'm sure you, of course, know about different learning styles. Some people are visual, some people are auditory, some people are kinesthetic. I'm sure you also know about the fact that people have different ways of receiving and retaining knowledge based on their different intelligences. For so long, we've told people that you're not that enough, you're not smart. You're not going to be a scientist, and you're not good enough for the world. And because of that, the way we've even taught and put education out there has been a problem. We've done a lot of research. We've gone to Asia, we've gone to the Caribbean, we've gone to different parts of Africa as well, because that's closest to home. And then, of course, we've taken programs like the IB, which seem to be in some way getting it right, deconstructed it. And we've asked ourselves, so why can't you learn science through art? And why can't you learn art through science? It needs to be symbiotic at every stage. So right now, that's what we're doing. We actually put together a whole document. We're hoping that we can present it to Parliament in the next 2 months. And I'll let you know how it goes. But if you ask me, that's what we need to do. We can't just be teaching art in a vacuum. People need to understand that in your everyday life, art in all its forms, from the literature to the music to the dance, everything has a role to play in our development and our way of living as human beings. And art is the reason why we say it's culture, right? When we say culture, a lot of the time we're talking about the soft stuff. But the soft stuff have an advantage. The advantage is that you can actually talk about very, very weighty things. They can literally insult somebody in verse, and then 5 years I'm like, oh wow, she really insulted me.
Yeah.
But you have made your point, and possibly with even have got that person consulting to be a friend because of the art, and that's just one, out there example. But really, we believe that if we take the creativity and art and we mesh it into education, not just as a standalone option, but as something that everybody needs to be a part of work. And I'll just give you a practical example before when I was in IB1, so grade 11, in my math class, you know how IB questions are very open-ended?
Yes.
They'll tell, okay, investigate a known factor of photosynthesis, and then you have to figure out how you're going to do the practical yourself and everything. So we were asked to draw or to create an isosceles triangle without drawing it on a piece of paper. So we had to go around and we were supposed to do artistic. So my group took one of these water bottles, and this is why it sticks. One of these water bottles, empty. And then we created a hole, did all the calculations, put it at a certain height, and then filled it with water. So that when the water is pouring out, it pours out at an angle. When it hits the plane, it creates a triangle. So that's what my group did. Pure creativity. And that's the kind of thing that we need to be getting people to understand. Then they will understand that art is not just frivolous. It's not just something you can do because you can't do something else. In the case of, you're dumb or you're stupid because you can't swim, you're a fish.
Like when you go to high school, they ask you what you want to say, science or arts. And usually when you say arts, you choose certain.
Yeah, it's, I remember in Ghana here, in primary school, the arts is part of our curriculum. Ghana here, we study science, whatever. We have cultural studies. Cultural studies dive into individual, regional, and language, whatever it has to do with it, we teach you. That's what true does. I remember those days, you have annually, you do performance arts. Every region, your school, inter-school, your arts, create a stage, all the schools will come and do it or whatever to get the best art, performance on those things. So the art and education goes together. It's just unfortunate that our part of the world, we are lacking that side. Within being an artist or whatever, the education aspect is down. And that's what we are lacking and is killing our industry, especially in Ghana. So we are at least retired. Whilst we all try to talk about these things, retiring, the young ones are picking up. Thank you for sure.
So kind of going based off like education and going back to what you were saying about censorship and also like the music, like all of the arts in general. I feel like in the US, personally my experience, a lot of the books I wanted to read or movies I wanted to see or music I wanted to listen to are censored from a very young age. Like by the school, I went to public school, so by the school specifically, and then the stuff that I had that I wanted to read weren't really available to me until I got older, until I was like in 11th grade or 12th grade in high school, or until I got to college and everything. Like for example, Beloved by Toni Morrison was not available to me until like I went to college, so I didn't get to read that until like my sophomore year. And then just like movies about our stories and everything, they aren't like what is played, like you have a off day or whatever in school and everything. So I wanted to ask, like, how do you do that censorship in your work and make that available to kids through education and just getting it available to them so that way that they are exposed to it. That way they can see themselves or just like learn about the issues that you were talking about earlier with marital relationships and like get that out there.
So for now, unfortunately, we don't really have control over what makes it into the curriculum, which is what we're trying to fight, right? So for us as artists, as practitioners, as much as possible, see the collaboration I was talking about, that's important because we need to create spaces outside of the formal where informal education and exposure can happen. That's why, so in film screenings, for example, our panel discussions are important. Workshops, meetings like this, these things have to happen. And as much as possible, these days we're seeing it more where practitioners, yes, we get together and we organize these things because we recognize that look, if we don't put it out there ourselves and push it down to the people ourselves, it's not going to happen. Now, usually when it begins to gain traction, as with most things in the popular sphere, then it begins to make it into the more formal space, and we recognize that. So that's what we try to do, organize, bring people together, go into the schools when we can. Such mobilization is a bit expensive, but we try as much as possible to do it. Go down to the schools right from the elementary, primary school, or what we call it, bring it to the high school, and then to the tertiary level. Before, it was a little difficult for us as artists, practicing artists, to access the tertiary spaces. Again, because there's this notion that if you don't have, say, a PhD in your practicing field, then you have no business coming into a university classroom to tell people what you're doing. But more and more, we're seeing those barriers break where the academic and the practice on the ground don't have to exist in isolation. We need to work together. We feed one another. The research that we're getting from the academic space should feed our art and make it better. And what we're doing on the ground should feed the academic and get it to be more realistic in its representation in the classroom.
Also, I talked about the way the politics, the police brutality, and some other things that I talked about on the song. So pushing the song really gave me a lot of I would say a lot of heart attack because I have my Instagram page planned now, and even on the radio and TV, like I took the songs to radio stations and on TV stations, like most of them like they won't hear the song because they were scared, that the government might come out.
I think, essentially him talking about that when he did the collaboration with Sheo Kuti is also very, very opinionated. His voice is one of the dissenting voices when it comes to things that are going on, just with the general politics and polity, just following the footsteps of his father, Fela Kuti. So, essentially, I think this really is aligned. MC, I'm not sure if you're back, but if you are, please definitely speak up. And I think one of the folks can get a chance to look at that and review it for themselves. I'm just happy for things here so that everyone can also see, the Nature Music site, Moby's latest song with MC and Joshua, as well as where you can also see some of the music on Apple Music. But I'll stop sharing. Pass it back to you, K-Town.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone, Anayel, Mumsy, Moby, what's up, for taking time out of your day to come speak to us. Very insightful. And thank you to you guys for being patient and asking great questions. I hope you guys learned a lot. They're still around if you want to ask them questions personally. Thank you so much for being patient. You give them a round of applause. Drinks.
So just a quick note, big thank you to my business partner, Osa. Co-founder of Hilltop. just wanted to know who I was.
Okay, get some tea, get some refreshments, and talk with our guests. Before we go to dinner, I just want to meet with the students real quick. Okay? So go talk.
One other thing for the, sorry, I have to a little bit up for the ladies and grads.
Yes. Okay, I'll get you a phone. Yes.
What? Well,
What you mean?